Are you a Mudsill? Quote, Mudsill theory is the proposition that there must be and always has been a lower class or underclass for the upper classes and the rest of society to rest upon. The term derives from a mudsill, the lowest threshold that supports the foundation for a building. Unquote, from Wikipedia. Quote, I've been down so long it looks like up to me. Jim Morrison from The Doors. For thousands of years, the rich and powerful have worked hard to secure a workforce to tend to their needs. In 2000 BC, the Egyptians paid men to build their pyramids, but somewhere along the way, the wealthy figured out it would be simply cheaper to have slaves. From History.com, many considered a significant starting point of slavery in America to be 1619, when the privateer, the White Lion, brought 20 enslaved Africans ashore in the British colony of Jamestown, Virginia. The crew had seized the Africans from the Portuguese slave ship, the Bautista. Yet enslaved Africans have been present in regions such as Florida that are part of present-day United States nearly a century before this, unquote. Slavery in America fell out of fashion by the end of the Civil War, but that did not stop the aristocratic ruling class of the southern plantation owners from finding another way to secure cheap labor. Riding home from Alabama in November of 1863, an Ohio cavalryman celebrated the overthrow of the Southern aristocracy. I quote, the Mudsills of the North roam at will over the plantations. They burn rails and forage on the country. And the Negroes flock into our camps, leaving their lordly masters helpless and dependent, he rejoiced. Quote, alas for the pride and boasting of the chivalrous subjects of King Cotton. He described not one but two intertwined revolutions unleashed as slavery collapsed and the elite pretensions crumbled, especially illuminating was his triumphant reference to Mudsills, a loaded term which connected wartime upheaval to antebellum politics. Mudsill became a political catchword in 1858, thanks to the infamous speech by Senator Henry James Hammond of South Carolina. A separate southern nation, he proclaimed would thrive thanks to its control over the cotton production and its stable social order. According to Hammond, every civilization needed a class of manual workers. Quote, in all social systems, there must have been a class to do the menial duties, to perform the drudgeries of life, he proclaimed. It constitutes the very mudsill of society. Northerners consigned whites to this degraded status, but the South had, quote, found a race adapted to that purpose, unquote, and built a society on the bedrock of black labor. Quote, we use them for our purpose. We call them slaves. I will not characterize that class at the North by that, but you have it. It is there. It is everywhere. It is eternal, unquote. There was little doubt that the mindset that there should always be a subservient working class that has fewer rights and privileges of the elite exists in America today. From Statistica, I quote, U.S. wealth distribution in 2025. In the first quarter of 2025, almost 2/3% of the total wealth in the United States was owned by the top 10% of earners. In comparison, the lowest 50% of earners only own 2.5% of the total wealth. Income inequality in the U.S., despite the idea that the United States is a country where hard work and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps will inevitably lead to success, this is often not the case. In 2023, 7.4% of U.S. households had an annual income under $15,000, with a small percentage of people in the United States owning such a vast majority of the country's wealth. The gap between rich and poor in America remains stark. The top 1%, the United States was the country with the most billionaires in the world in 2025. Elon Musk, with a net worth of $342 billion, was among the richest people in the United States in 2025. Over the past 50 years, the CEO to worker compensation has exploded, causing the gap between rich and poor to grow, with some economists theorizing that this gap is the largest it's been since right before the Great Depression. Will the time come when middle and working class Americans will finally say enough is enough? It appears that Trump thinks so. It might explain why he is building up our troops to protect him and the American billionaires from an overdue revolution. The unleashing of ICE has nothing to do with violent, undocumented immigrants and everything to do with controlling an increasingly angry citizenry. His failed policies, along with the Epstein scandals, are catalysts for America's anger. Americans have had it with the mega-rich getting away with sex crimes and feathering their nests, while the rest of Americans are unable to afford to live. This from Heather Cock Richardson, and I quote, "In Lincoln's day, and in the Gilded Age, and in the 1930s, Americans pushed back against those trying to establish an aristocracy in the United States. That project appears to be gaining speed as well in today's America, where the rich and powerful are increasingly operating in cryptocurrencies and avoiding accountability, but where a majority of people would prefer to live in a world where a child does not have to sell her body to older men in order to save enough money to get braces on her teeth." I'm Bob Stannard. This is The View from my place, and thank you very much for watching.